Lecture Series. My name is Steve Goodnick. I'm the Deputy Director of ASU LightWorks. LightWorks is a university initiative that's basically focused on light-inspired solutions, and one of the main ones is that of the challenge of harnessing solar energy for renewable energy. LightWorks faculty and students are engaged in a broad variety of research and educational programs ranging from solar electric, solar fuels, policy, economics, and sustainability. Today, we're pleased to host a panel discussion on how to achieve a zero carbon future. So as many of you know, President Michael Crow's directive, ASU's embarked on a very ambitious plan to achieve net zero carbon emissions campus-wide. And in order to achieve this goal, we've formed a strategic partnership with Ameresco and the Rocky Mountain Institute. So here today, we've organized a panel discussion for you with some of the main architects of that strategic plan from both ASU and Ameresco to discuss both the motivations and challenges for achieving carbon neutrality and to provide insight into the opportunities for ASU students and faculty to engage in this partnership. It's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's panel discussion. That is Byck, who is the director, producer, and writer of Carbon Nation, which is the 2001 documentary film that addressed the technological and community-based solutions to achieving basically zero carbon emissions. He's appeared in numerous speaking engagements, most recently Real Time with Bill Mayer and on NPR's Science Friday. And he's recently joined ASU as a faculty in the School of Sustainability and in the Cronkite School of Journalism. And at ASU, he's working now on Carbon Nation 2.0, which is basically a series of short films looking how we can transition to basically a reduced carbon economy. And he's doing this in basically affiliation with ASU. So at this point, I would like to invite Peter up to the podium, who's going to introduce our panelists and basically moderate this discussion. So please join me in welcoming Peter Byck.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. When I first came to ASU October 2nd of last year, one of the first things I did was meet Gary Dirks and learn about LightWorks. And I can say it's been a love fest on my part anyway ever since. We're going to start introducing the folks. So the folks who are going to speak on the panel are going to each have 10 minutes to present their world to you all. And then we'll do a question thing. We'll have a lot of questions from the audience. So we're going to start with, I call you Nick Brown, man. Nick Brown, Director of the University Sustainability Practices, and he's a sustainability scientist at the Global Institute of Sustainability here at ASU. A little history. Nick came to us to ASU from the University of Arkansas, where he served since 2007 as the Director for Campus Sustainability and as an adjunct professor of geosciences. Nick previously worked in Arkansas with the Winrock International Institute for Agricultural Development. That's not very easy to say. The National Center for Appropriate Technology, and as the solar coordinator for the state's Department of Energy. So I don't know how we got you, but you were very busy there. So it's nice to see you. Please go on.
Thank you. And I'm grateful that you're all here. I'm delighted to be part of this. It's quite an honor to be here. I'm going to begin by laying out a framework of the greenhouse gas emissions inventory for ASU and our carbon neutrality, our climate neutrality strategy, broadly speaking, how we intend to get where we need to be over the next 15 years. Greenhouse gas inventories can be designed on the basis of two possibilities. Both of these are framed out in the greenhouse gas protocol, which was put together by the World Resources Institute and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. The first of those is equity share. That would suggest that based on economic interest, you decide what your liabilities are for greenhouse gases. This really doesn't fit a university model very well, so we've chosen the control approach, which accounts for our emissions that we have operational control over. It doesn't have anything to do with whether we own facilities or not. If we control those facilities, we accept responsibility for emissions related to them. So the best example of those on our campuses are third-party owned residence halls. Many of our res halls are owned by American Campus Communities and other vendors. But if you live in those facilities, you're an ASU student. So you can't live there without being an ASU student. You can't live there without paying tuition to ASU. We accept responsibility for emissions in those kinds of facilities. All in all, we manage something in the range of 21 million square feet. Well, this is what our inventory has looked like for the past 6 years. We began in 2007 providing a detailed inventory of our sources of emissions, and we've gone from about 370,000 down to about 310,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Don't get too hung up on what the slope looks like over here, because those of you who are good engineers or good scientists will know you can make this look just about any way you want it to look. If I put 0 here instead of 280, it wouldn't look very good because it would be mostly across the top and we'd have a very long distance to go all the way to the bottom. So we're about 15% down from where we were 6 years ago. This represents about a 25% decrease in net emissions per gross square foot or per FTE relative to business as usual. So we're proud of that. We've made good progress. There's a lot more left to do. So the way we've done this is basically with 4 or 5 categories of activity. The first one is energy savings performance contracts. We've invested something in the range of $75 million in 2 large contracts over the last few years on our campus. Ameresco has done much of that work. Other partners have as well. I won't go into energy savings performance contracts except to say that broadly speaking, they represent how we have reduced emissions through conservation and efficiency, both in buildings, also in our central plant and in our central utilities. The second is our combined heat and power plant. That's reduced our emissions by something in the range of 40,000 tons per year below where it would have been. This is not a real secret sauce for those of you who understand some engineering. If we get electricity from a utility, it's something in the range of 35% efficient in transforming energy from coal or natural gas into electricity. Our system on campus provides about 6 megawatts of power at its peak, plus about 7 million BTUs of thermal energy. Because we have a lot of research, we have a 24/7, 365 demand for some thermal energy. When we capture that as well, the efficiency of the entire system goes from about 35 to about 65%. So that's how we're saving or reducing our inventory in this sense. We're getting quote unquote free thermal energy from our electrical power plant. Some of you don't even know we have a power plant on campus. It's the building that's just north of Hacienda. If you don't know, think about it as the building with no windows into which no students go. So if you didn't know that, you might not know that we had a CHP at all. I've got 20,000 tons here for photovoltaics that we've reduced our emissions inventory by. It's probably closer to 25,000, 28,000 over the most recent fiscal year. And so that's just a direct result of our solarization program. Dave Brixen will talk about that more in just a few minutes. You saw on the title slide that we had over 900,000 rides for Metro. That's combined with trains and buses. Most of you do know, because it was offered to you, that we offer Metro passes at about 40% discount. It allows you unlimited numbers of rides, and we've participated in that in a very big way. So those 970,000 or so rides represent a reduction of something like 15,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. And finally, I'm a bike enthusiast, and I think we've reduced emissions by about 5,000 tons from cycling. That's really hard to measure because we're not sure whether cyclists live 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 miles out on the average. Well, here's how we plan to go from where we are currently, around 310,000 tons, down to 0. And I'm not going to read all of these off because you can read them for yourself. I'll just hit the highlights of it. That is to say that the first thing you'll notice is our inventory is around 310. We're hoping to get 365 out of this. There are 2 main reasons for this. One is that we do have a charge to grow quantitatively. ABOR and President Crow have said we'll grow to as many as 100,000 students. Some of those are online, don't get excited. But we will grow, and so that we have to plan for more emissions avoided than the current level. The second reason for that is that everything never goes right. So some of these things are likely not to happen, at least at the level that we hope they will happen and plan that they will happen. If all these things do happen, we'll hit our mark. I'm confident that some combination that looks somewhat like this is going to happen by the year 2025. So by 2025, we will have eliminated our emissions except for the mobile ones. So that's building emissions, building-related emissions, and the minor ones, things like fertilizers and fugitive refrigerants and things like that. Well, here's the big, hairy graph. If I didn't show you at least one of these, I wouldn't be a credible scientist. You can't read it, you can't understand it. But this line up at the top here is what our emissions would look like as business as usual. Conservation and grid management will reduce that by about the 40,000 tons you saw on the previous slide. We're looking currently at purchasing power through a PPA, a power purchase agreement, from a private company that will have a biomass energy facility. If we don't get this one, we'll get a different one. We'll get one. But we do count on biomass as being a very big piece of our success over the coming years. We're known for our solarization. We're proud of it. Biomass is going to carry a lot of the water for us. And then we have wastewater treatment plant. We're currently in negotiations with the sub-regional operating group, that group that has such a sexy name as FROG, for wastewater, for biomethane from the 91st Ave treatment plant. That will reduce our inventory by about 11%, or about 35,000 tons. This is LFG, landfill gas to electricity. And finally, green transportation. I'd say one thing about green transportation, and that is that we expect that the marketplace will do much of the work for us. So that by 2035, when we're committed to be climate neutral with respect to mobile fuels and mobile sources as well, we expect that the market will have brought us green transportation in the form of green electricity that supports EVs and green biofuels from biomass of different kinds. Quickly, I'll say that we have looked at the kinds of metrics that you typically do in terms of decision making. We've added 3 or 4 that are sustainability metrics, and those are comparing the cost of green energy to brown energy, calculating how much it costs to avoid a ton of emissions. This is just a really interesting way to do it. It's a different way of saying what's the most efficient means for avoiding emissions. We have to look at the present and the future value of various tools for offsets, so that's renewable energy credits and offsets, things like that. Finally, we do look at this in terms of what will it cost us per student per year, to put it in perspective of the other expenses that ASU undergoes. There are too many summary messages here for us to really look at in detail right now. I'm going to turn the floor over, except to say that there are a number of really important factors that relate to the management of our university, how it fits in with our core business, as well as how our energy systems operate. With that, I'm going to turn the program back over, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
We only had 10 seconds, so that was all right, next up is Dave Brixen, Vice President, Facilities Development and Management here at ASU. Dave's areas of responsibility include facilities management, capital programs management, and the Office of the University Architect, as well as the business and administrative support operations within facilities development and management. Basically what it means is he runs the place. Mr. Brixen earned a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from ASU in 1977. He began his professional career here at ASU in 1977 as an accountant in the Comptroller's Office, and he's going to be retiring in a week. So here you go. Let's hear from Dave.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to share with you some of the things that we're doing with our campus solarization program. Let me just tell you a little bit about our campus solarization. That's what we coined it. Hopefully you all have seen one or two of our installations. They're pretty much everywhere. And it's something that I can say I'm very proud of, and I'm very proud of my team and our partners who have put in a lot of time and effort to make this happen. But so we have right now in operation 23.5 megawatts. That's made up of 86 systems spread out through all 4 campuses. Also, our research park that's the home of the Macro Technology Works. And I have a few pictures that I'm big on pictures because I think they're kind of cool. They're aerial photos of some of this that I want to share. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those sites at that time. Just want to keep in mind that in June we expect to have just over 25 megawatts installed, which I'm proud to say is 1 year ahead of our goal of 25 megawatts that President Crow set for us by 2015. So I mentioned that we now have a solar presence on all campuses, and this slide pretty much shows you the spread of how those are distributed. Obviously, on the Tempe campus, we have the largest electrical load here, so we also have the most amount of space, at least initially, for our solar installations. I'm not going to go through this, but as you can see, we have a total of our 86 systems are spread, 74 of them, vast majority on the Tempe campus. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the West campus, because that's kind of interesting how that solar system is distributed. I'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. So here's another thing that I'm very proud of. Obviously, you probably can tell because I get excited about talking about this. If you haven't been in a plane and flying along the flight path on the town lake, you probably haven't seen this. But next time you are, please look out the window, and this is the view you'll see where we have a large solar installation, 0.5 megawatt essentially, powering our Wells Fargo Arena. And because we want to advertise it, we want to demonstrate to anybody who comes here what we're doing, we have the lettering that indicates Sundial Power. So this is another interesting system. This is our student rec facility on the Tempe campus. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll notice that those collectors are a little bit different than the PV panels on the right-hand side. Those collectors are our first major solar thermal system we have on campus, on any of our campuses. So we're able to, from that, make chilled water. We heat the pool. We provide hot water for showers in the building. So, and it's equivalent, over 2 megawatts, equivalent to electrical energy. On the right-hand side is our new addition that we just completed this last summer, and we have just our standard solar PV systems on that one. Here's another project that we recently completed, and I want to say thank you to Ameresco, because these projects that we're getting pictures of, for the most part, are a result of our partnership with Ameresco and their good work as helping my staff implement our solar program. This is the aerial photo of our Farrington softball complex. Please, the season kicks off in a couple weeks. I invite you to go out and enjoy some quality softball. And while you're out there, you should enjoy some shade, because we were able to get this system installed. We think it's the first one of its kind in a stadium of this nature at a U.S. university. So this is our West campus. We have two major systems, a ground mount that's on your left, and then we have covered parking. I wanted to point out on this that during the daytime, during peak hours of daytime use, the campus essentially goes off the grid, and we're powering it with clean solar energy. So we're very proud of that. In fact, we've got so much solar energy right now out there, we can't install anymore. Now jumping over to the Polytech campus, here's a shot of, this is another interesting system. This is a partnership with SunPower and SRP. SRP is the electrical provider at the Polytech campus. This is a concentrating PV system that was installed. It's been in operation now a couple years ago. SunPower is, I can't remember what the name they refer to it as, but it's one of their demonstration sites. We get a lot of folks touring the facility to see how it's operating. And if you aren't familiar with this as that, you go out to the Polytech campus and sort of head south from where the South Desert Village is located. You'll run into this site. You really can't get close to it, but you can see it. Okay, this is another off-site location, which is our Macro Technology Works, located at the ASU Research Park. That building, unfortunately, but it's because of what we do there, uses about 2 megawatts of energy at any given time. The solar system you see installed there, which is pretty vast, provides about half the energy to power that building. So I kind of mentioned this before, but here's just some facts of how much energy is being provided by the various solar systems at the campuses. Note that West Campus, during daytime peak, we're over-generating, which is not a great thing on one hand, but it's okay on that campus because fortunately the way our utility APS operates, we sort of bank our net metering, and it gets trued up at the end of the year. And the good news is our true up at the end of the year, we're actually not net metering, we're not selling back to a very large extent. And our goal is, of course, not to net meter. We're trying to maintain all of that energy on our campuses because the net metering financially isn't real favorable for us. If I have the cards, and this is just the email and the website address on the card, but if you are interested in getting a lot more information about our solar program, I encourage you to go to the website. If you have any questions, I encourage you to send an email to that website or that email address, and somebody will get back to you. I have several cards up here with that information at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to take them, please do. So while solar's been a big part of what I do since about 2007, it's not the only thing that's been happening in the facilities area in terms of implementation of energy reduction strategies and the like. Again, Drew and Nick mentioned we've gone through 2 energy performance contracts kicking off in 2004, and combined we've invested about $75 million from that. Just so you know, that $75 million is being repaid by the savings that these energy conservation projects are generating. And the projects include chiller replacements. In our central plant, we have 10 2,000-ton chillers for a 20,000-ton capacity. We replaced all those under this first phase of the performance contract. The previous chillers were high energy use. These chillers are much more efficient for us. So low-hanging fruit, we went through and changed out lighting in most, if not all, of our buildings and our parking garages to low wattage fluorescents and LEDs in the case of in our parking garages. We switched out over 400 motors with much more high efficient systems, which is helping reduce our energy consumption. A number of our buildings we converted to HVAC direct digital controls. We also implemented an energy information system, an EIS system, which we could go on about that for another hour, just talking about the benefits of that. But it's a system that allows our staff and others to monitor what's going on in our buildings from the perspective of what we're generating in solar, if that facility has solar connected to it, what we're consuming in electrical, chilled water, steam, and the like. We also are, as we build new buildings on campuses, we are following our LEED, the LEED program. LEED, I'm assuming everybody knows. Anybody not know what LEED stands for? Okay, I won't bore you with that then. But I'm proud to say that we were the first university in the state of Arizona to have a LEED platinum building, and that's the bio-design. And I'm not going to go through this, but we have a total of 37 LEED buildings on campus. Here's something that I know there's some interest from students on how to get involved, and I'll talk a little bit about SURF. SURF is Sustainability Initiative Revolving Fund. It's a way the university is funding smaller type energy projects, but as you look at Tier 1 projects, eligibility, those are projects, those are grants that students and others can apply for. And if when I'm done with this, if there's any questions on how to get involved with the SURF program, please send the email to the the email address that I have on the card. Tier 2 is a matching fund program. This is designed primarily for academic and university departments to split the cost of energy reduction projects related to renovations. We also, that's the one we encourage faculty and researchers to change out their sub-zero zero freezers, and it's not being very subscribed to this point. So if any of you out there know somebody's looking to change out their low temp freezers, here's an opportunity to get some funding to do that. And we know those are real energy hogs, and we would like to update those as much as possible. The Tier 3 is primarily the funds that my organization gets involved with, and those are our larger scale projects that impact in a significant way our sustainability efforts. To date, we've spent, out of this fund, we've spent about just over $4 million, but we have several $1 million that are unallocated. So here's an opportunity, if you know somebody or you have interest, to check into this opportunity. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. I'll turn back to you. Thank you, Dave.
All right, now we're doing a tag team, so I'm going to introduce two people. So first one is Mark Wilhelm, Director of Carbon Neutrality Initiatives at Ameresco. Mark has devoted more than 3 decades to sustainability issues with a primary focus on energy-efficient building design, renewable energy technologies, and market transformation. He has an extensive background in environmental planning, architecture, engineering, and solar technology. He is leading the strategic alliance with Ameresco, Rocky Mountain Institute, and ASU. Mr. Wilhelm earned his NS in 1982 from ASU after completing a BA from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And then also, we're going to be hearing from Daniel Hunter, also from Ameresco. He's the account executive. Daniel is an account executive at Ameresco with primary responsibilities to assist clients in implementing programs that meet technical engineering design, legal, administrative, and financial objectives. He is currently involved in helping ASU to implement multiple phases of facility and infrastructure upgrades and renewable energy projects involving 158 buildings covering over 11 million square feet of the university infrastructure. These projects have included the installation of over 14 megawatts of distributed solar photovoltaic and solar thermal projects at the 4 ASU campuses, which you just heard about. Gentlemen, it's all yours.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here and an honor to follow these fine gentlemen at this marvelous university. It isn't very often that I think people in sustainability get an opportunity to work on a project of this nature and of this magnitude. Wouldn't you agree, Daniel? I would agree. Absolutely. Let's get on with it. Ultimately, you already did that. We're thinking ahead of each other. A professor and mentor of mine from years gone by, Buckminster Fuller. This is a quote that I have on my phone as my screensaver. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. What we're zeroing in on here is really transformative change. If we sit back on our haunches and try to accept incremental change, then we're in deep trouble, in my opinion. And ultimately, it takes serious leadership to get to the point where you're actually going to have an impact on the world. And if you drive to Dr. Crow and the goal that he set to be climate neutral by 2025 and with transportation by 2035, there have been quite a few universities that have signed on to the American College and University President's climate commitment. But of the 679 or thereabouts, I don't think there are that many that are as serious as Dr. Crow. And so when you link that together with George Sakalaris, President and CEO of Ameresco, also a visionary and also very committed to this approach, and together with Amory Lovins, folks at Rocky Mountain Institute, and the way that this has been set up, ultimately at Arizona State University, it's been driven through the two gentlemen that you just heard speak to you, folks with great knowledge and great gravity, ultimately. They have the capability of impacting things. So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to actually do something. Market transformation is our target. Many people say, let's wait until the markets change. The markets will basically fix everything. Others say, no, we need regulation, because if we don't have regulation, it'll never occur. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten very far. And so we need both. It's a much more complicated mixture. But when you look at it, it's quite a simple focus. Our goal of climate neutrality, you can state it very simply. But from that point on, questions are raised, and the decisions and questions become quite practical. One of the first things that we did after signing the contract with Arizona State University back in May of last year was implement an interview process with 50, 60 odd and some not so odd people throughout the university community. In fact, there are a number of you here in the audience. The question that was asked when this Wordle was produced was basically, do you think ASU should lead the charge to climate neutrality? And as you can see, absolutely. The result was yes. There's certainly some interesting comments that came along with it, but there's a lot of passion behind this effort. The problem is you can't look up in the a recipe book and find the recipe for climate neutrality. You can file this recipe under N for never been done before. So our recipe, as we identified it back then, was get a big goal, take stock of your resources and impacts, be aggressive and innovative, define your strategies, and get proper quantities of each. Mix energy conservation and efficiency together. Add generation assets, add infrastructure improvements, add tracking, measurement and verification, and reporting software. Add structured finance, but don't forget a pinch of training and behavior modification, because it really is reliant on a lot of us, and what we do and how we behave on a daily basis. And cook it in batches until 2025, checking the status often, and then spread it across 4+ campuses, serving over 100,000 students by 2020. So simple, not a problem. The challenge is figuring out what are those quantities. That's the big challenge. So we're building the new climate neutrality model, but in many cases it's under the rules and paradigms of the old model. And what we mean by that, if we take a look at that staircase of MC Escher, we're constantly walking, constantly moving, but never getting to the top. So it requires building new business models, not just a new business model for Arizona State University, but also a new business model for Ameresco and energy service companies. A new business model, yes, for utilities. It needs to change in all three areas. Some current paradigm tools that are constrained, that have to be reevaluated, are our decision-making process that's typically focused on the short term as opposed to long term. The traditional financial metrics that Dr. Brown focused on earlier, we need to find other ones, metrics that go beyond energy cost savings. Common delivery methods, how we deliver our buildings. They're delivered at lowest cost, and they're delivered to meet code. Does that necessarily translate into long-term efficiency? LEED Silver design guidelines, they're marvelous. However, you only need to be 10% better than ASHRAE 90.1 energy standard, whereas we should be targeting 35, 40% better. 15-minute net metering rules can cause issues and problems, as Dave Brixen was identifying. We've got an opportunity. It works well at one campus, but not so well at the other. Wheeling regulations. How do we deal with utilities and the ability of implementing a large 50, 75 megawatt photovoltaic or whatever, a biomass generation facility someplace in the desert, and be able to wield that power here so that it works. And it really comes up to a learning that we've had quite a bit recently. If you change one thing, all things must change, or at least they all must be reevaluated.
So one of the other things that we're learning as we dive into ASU, and we're trying to make sure that our slides are answering questions that have been submitted in preparation. We thank LightWorks and the ASU Energy Club for taking some time to submit some questions. But what's the difference between this and a standard performance contract, something that we've already done in the past? Well, in a standard performance contract, we may only focus in on one part of the university. If we're serious about getting to carbon neutrality, then we have to integrate and work across and connect with the entire university. So there's a nice quote here from tribal leadership. The nice part's down there at the bottom. We have world-class
we are planning a sustainability summit in conjunction with ASU GEOS, March 6th through 7th. Mark your calendar. The evening of March 6th, Amory Lovins with Rocky Mountain Institute will be out here, President Crow. That's an open house event. So kind of piggybacking off Dave's comment, how can you get involved? Another great way in the immediate future is to come attend that event, to prepare for it and come and attend it. There'll be some other breakout sessions the day after, but that's something that everybody in this room can come attend. What type of tools would we use that we haven't used in the past? This graphic right here comes out of the ASU Carbon Neutrality Plan that you published at the beginning when the original goal was set to get to climate neutrality. Some people here in the audience in the back middle table had some great input into this slide and some of the strategies that got into it. But the infrastructure, integration, and intelligence is something that is essential if you want to track all the data, make sure it's being monitored, make sure that from that data you can have a Prius effect to people who are looking at it to result in a behavioral change that Mick Brown was showing in his slides, hopefully around 30,000 metric tons. Another tool that we're really excited about is this asset sustainability tool. There's a great slide coming up a little bit later, but this basically shows how, again, a traditional ESCO project, we're trying to do as much energy savings conservation measures under one project. This tool allows you to look out over the long run and do the right things at the right time instead of all at once right up front. And again, I'll get into that later in a more specific slide. And then tools such as this exchange point tool allow you to kind of do what Mick Brown was saying, not only rank projects on net present value, ROI, RRR, the traditional financial metrics, but the reduction of the 6 main greenhouse gas emissions and other non-traditional. They're still economic, but they're not traditionally used at a CFO level. So we're trying to push ASU to use these type of metrics in making decisions. By May of this year, we will have our first big deliverable to ASU is the Climate Action Plan. And what is a Climate Action Plan? Basically, this is a plan that will show multiple roadmaps that ASU can choose from or combine. There'll be certain projects, initiatives, institutional changes, but ASU can pick and choose from these things to get to the ultimate goal of climate neutrality by 2025 and transportation by 2035. I'm kind of cruising through these fast so we have time for questions. Yeah. This slide shows, again, one of the questions I think that the Energy Club presented was, what is the business model? How is this business model different? What business models are you creating? This slide, in my eyes, shows a couple things. One, that there, as we are figuring out, there is not just one business model that gets you to climate neutrality. Rather, we view this relationship with ASU as a trusted advisory strategic partnership. And so under that, we have several different ideas for projects, several different business models, and several different financial sources. And these are just a few. We're going to hone in on some of these in other slides as well. Right steps in the right order was another question. You can see right there that number 6 is a popular place for people to start. If you select a goal such as carbon neutrality, a lot of people want to go right to the technology. Well, what's the technological solution to get there? In our plan, in what ASU has done and what we are planning to do, these are the steps that we're trying to take in the right order so that it is a sustainable business model that can be replicated so that when ASU attains climate neutrality, this is a business model and process that can be replicated to other universities and cities all across the nation and the world.
We've been leveraging a number of different tools because ultimately we as humans, what we do is we go through processes and we improve them. That's how we've gotten where we are and done what we do. Obviously there's a few processes we've failed to improve along the way, and that's one of the reasons we're here talking about this. But ultimately, our energy use forecast, ASU will spend around $750 million on energy between now and 2025. It's a lot of money. So we look at it, that's a lot of carbon. We look at that money and that carbon and we say, well, what if there were a better way to do this? And we've leveraged models that have been developed for other reasons by others. So, for example, National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado, and Rocky Mountain Institute, and us, we're using one of NREL's models, a model called REOP, Renewable Energy Opportunities, and it's been developed by NREL to leverage their capability to take a look at military installations and identify ways in which they can leverage generation, conservation, battery storage, controls to develop functioning microgrids and to leverage technology in a manner that you can say, well, we don't want to take coal-generated electricity in the evening. Instead, we'd like to take a different source of electricity. So when you look at this and you start to project it out, the data collection and the data analysis has just been paramount to this process. And there's been 7 months, and a lot of people, and again, many people in this room have provided some serious input into this. Finding out what we need to know and finding tools to develop it. And we have found that this REOP tool has some limitations. So, for example, it doesn't have the capability of in a sense, doing scenarios over a long period of time. It allows you to only do snapshots. It also has limitations with the types of technology that can be analyzed. So along comes our expanded relationship, and we start to evaluate what we can implement, and we want to map a building portfolio and develop an energy efficiency strategy based upon what we've learned.
We'd like piggybacking these slides together.
That's okay.
That's good. But this is the one we were talking about before, where you can kind of see down at the bottom is the key of what all these different symbols mean. But essentially, it's showing where all of your buildings are at in terms of their carbon intensity and their energy intensity, and kind of a step-by-step approach about how to lower the carbon footprint and energy intensity of these buildings over time, as opposed to trying to just tackle everything all at once under one ESCO project. So you can see that there's different buildings that you could group together as part of the class. Maybe it's research buildings, maybe it's office, maybe it's student. Maybe it's a single measure that cuts through lots of different buildings. Maybe it's a project that is timed with a capital project that can go really deep into the building. But this type of long-term approach allows you to do that. This slide is important because, again, it shows all the different, this is, again, another question from Energy Club, what kind of business models and financial deal structures are you looking at? So you can see these are some of the ones that we've used in the past and some of the ones that we are considering for the future. Nick pointed out that we're looking at a deal or a project at 91st Avenue for biogas. We're looking at leveraging federal qualified energy conservation laws to help with that. We're looking at, there's 5 different cities involved with that deal as well as ASU. There's a potential microgrid project on the ASU, APS, and Ameresco are analyzing right now, where APS might be able to come up with some financial resources to help. We need to continue to speed along. Sure.
One of the other elements, too, I'll mention, when we look at the various buildings, 21 million square feet of buildings, we evaluate them. Some of them we can go deep dive energy retrofits on discrete buildings. Others, we want to take a building type approach. So we'll cut across building types like research buildings and the like, come up with a set of strategies to leverage there. Others might be a certain technology that we might leverage around the campus. So maybe it's a solar-powered parking lot light, something along those lines. When we were talking before about the REOPS program and some of the limitations, one of the things that we learned here, actually Bill Brandt introduced us to Dr. Nathan Johnson. He's a professor of mechanical engineering and has had actually some input into the creation of Homer and some of the NREL tools that we spoke about. Well, the beauty is he's developed software. Gosh darn it, it's right here at Arizona State University. And this software allows you to model options over time, which the REOP does not allow. Allows you to model them more comprehensively and more easily, which the REOP model isn't as user-friendly, and evaluates options that are beyond REOP's capabilities. So battery energy storage, thermal energy storage, some of those elements which are critical, we're now going to have to do those separately and combine the evaluation, which is a little kludgy. So we anticipate there will be improved models and tools that will be developed as a result of this, partly in partnership with Arizona State University, that we can take forward to the marketplace together and do good things. So we're inventing the new model. These are the pieces of the new model. It's important when you take a simple goal like achieving climate neutrality by 2025 and 2035 in transportation, you need to break it down. Certainly there are a number of pieces here of that puzzle, and there are also environmental issues like lobbying, regulatory issues, how we deal with various Arizona Corporation Commission, FERC, NERC, how we deal with Arizona Public Service Company, Salt River Project, institutional policies, demand side. You notice right in the middle, the biggest impact on our energy footprint here and our carbon footprint is demand side. Those would be the buildings themselves and also the vehicles that are used. So we are identifying discrete solutions, integrated solutions, trying to identify best-of-class solutions that can be unfolded in various roadmaps out throughout time here, based upon regulatory, based upon incentives, based upon technology development, in many cases trying to predict what some of the technologies will be and when they'll be developed.
The part, again, with the previous slide of Dr. A, you see the students and faculty. So again, for faculty that are out there, another way to get involved is to work through LightWorks and to connect with us. If you have ideas, if there's things you want to look at, we're more than happy to talk to you. We with Rocky Mountain Institute have already come up with about 30 to 40 one-page ideas of what could be done with research, and we're trying to distribute that. But we're actively trying to engage with students and faculty here at ASU. I know we're running short on time, but again, this VBEX, the value beyond energy cost savings, is an idea that will need to come into play in order to get to carbon neutrality. We have to look at the bigger picture. There's a saying that you can't solve a problem, enlarge a solution. This is part of enlarging that solution.
I think I will add too.
Yeah.
VBEX, one of our prime team members, Roy Torberg from Rocky Mountain Institute, and another associate from Rocky Mountain Institute, Scott Muldaven, they've written the book on VBEX, ultimately value beyond energy cost savings. And if we don't start valuing the externalities and the other impacts, then it's going to be hard to get from A to B. So here's another element of that: build a new model, because you can't just take the old model and try to incrementally grow off of it. Sustainability drivers and focus areas. If we want to result in some business model that's improved, enhanced organizational sustainability being a target, we need to go beyond just environmental compliance and market trends. So very often, where interest of an organization starts in sustainability will be through market trends, competitive pressures, energy auditing, or environmental issues. But we need to push beyond that. Very often into benchmarking and developing a climate action plan. Well, the propensity of colleges that have signed the ASU-PCC have done that. But they haven't implemented detailed plans or found financial ways or embraced the fact that they need a new business model and partners to get themselves to where they need to go. So we are focusing on each of these areas and developing some tools to allow us to evaluate other organizations to determine what their readiness is with respect to implementing climate neutrality plans. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. Thank you all for your presentations. So what I'm hearing is you guys have the facility to listen to a lot of students and faculty members' ideas. Is there also a budget involved so that they have some money they can help spend to get their ideas implemented? Or do they have to come up with their own grant money and things like that to try out their experiments with you guys?
I would say that it depends.
Okay.
I think, so let me elaborate. So with
You've talked to a lot of scientists.
Yeah, absolutely. For the microgrid project, for instance, there is a grant available from the Department of Energy for a demonstration project. So you could partly fund that through the grant. The one that we were talking about with Dr. Nate from Polytech campus would be kind of a research commercialization project. So that might be something, if you know the S-curve of technology adoption, we're looking for technologies and ideas that are at the early slope of that S-curve. So if that's something that Ameresco wants to invest in, we would. There's universities and ideas, one of them being Caldera, that we invested back east and that we're trying to commercialize more fully. The campus metabolism idea that, again, some people in the back of the room have helped to create. Is
Talk
another
a little bit about that, what that means.
Campus metabolism.
Yeah.
If you go to cm.asu.edu. It's a great idea. It actually was, Dave, you could probably talk about it better than I, but it was part of the first performance or second performance contract, and it's go for it.
Yeah, Rob, would you put your hand up? Because you had a big role in the CM, and one of our goals is to expand it. Right now, it only touches somewhere between 20 and 30 buildings. But what it does, and in fact, if you go to the Wrigley building in the lobby, there's screens there that is campus metabolism. You can go in and look at what that building is doing in terms of consuming energy, the various types of energy. You can also see how much it's got solar on the rooftop. You can see how much solar it's generating. That's what campus metabolism is, and we're partnering with Ameresco to try to expand that so we can get it out to all of our buildings. It's going to take some work, some time, and some money.
Very cool. I just want to ask a general question, or maybe most people here know what Ameresco is? Okay. What is Ameresco, and what is a purchase performance agreement?
Sure. Thank you for asking the question. Yeah. We didn't want to fill the whole time with shameless self-promotion. Ameresco is the largest energy service company, independent energy service company in the nation. ESCO stands for Energy Service Company, and then Amer is short for America. So that was Ameresco is the name of it. But our founder and CEO, George Sakalaris, was one of the first people who created the ESCO industry to begin with. So the other part of your question, what's an energy service performance contract? Dave alluded to it in his presentation, but basically you look for a project where the savings generated by implementing the project will pay for itself. So for simplicity's sake, if you're paying $1,000 on your utility bill, if we can come in and do a project that saves 30 to 40%, so you're paying $600 to $700 instead of $1,000, and the debt service to implement the project is less than that 30, 40%, then the savings will cover it. And after the debt's paid off, then the ASU reaps full benefits of the energy savings. So that's the core business model of an ESCO.
So you guys are developing, like you're saying, you're rebuilding the model, and it seems, well, first question, it seems like President Crow's pushing things very hard for a university president. Let's assume that's true, and I think it is true. You guys are developing a lot of new technology and a lot of new methods. How much are you then pushing that out to the other universities so that they can learn from it and push too? And do you have a feedback from them?
Sure. You can't change the world if you only change one university and one ESCO. And I think a number of us are pretty committed to changing the world in many respects. We are developing programs and projects and approaches that we are making at least a good portion of it public. Like one of the concepts will be it doesn't have a sexy name yet, but a climate neutrality implementation readiness audit that will allow you to go through and evaluate based upon numerous axes the readiness of an organization and determine where they're at with respect to organization, training, physical infrastructure, equipment. And so we'll have at least the first few approaches of that will be available. We're also engaged with other universities throughout, and we get a couple calls a week or a month in people asking for information.
I think back on that. One of the reasons that we partnered with Rocky Mountain Institute in this endeavor is because their whole mission is globally renowned think tank. So they, by decree of the people who fund that organization, they have to publish everything that they do. And so they do a much better job, I think, at outreach and marketing and publishing the results of what we're finding. The second part of your question, what's the feedback mechanism? I think we're still working on that.
Got it.
And, I would add, Peter, I think we're not so much developing new technologies as we are committed to deploying just about everything that's out there in some way or another in a balanced portfolio. For example, the project to capture biomethane from wastewater treatment has been done across the nation several times. Ameresco has done one
large project, probably 12 or 15 across the nation are in place. Landfill gas to electric or landfill gas to pipeline projects, there are about 200 nationwide. Deep retrofits, I'm talking about a 40% reduction in energy use for buildings, is uncommon but not unknown. We have leadership which is committed to making these things happen. We churn through them slowly. There's a very deep commitment to making them happen, but actually there's not much real magic sauce here. It's a matter of being committed to do just about everything that may be within reach and being innovative, if anything, with financial instruments to make them happen.
And so I've got a couple of questions. You touched on something I was just about to ask you, Nick. The issue of the biogas from wastewater treatment. ASU wants to take those credits. Somewhere down the line, wouldn't someone else want to take those credits, and all of a sudden you're going to have people fighting for the same efficiencies and the same waste?
Your implication is right, that there's not enough to go around and that it's not replicable region-wide or nationally as a strategy that will be a panacea. So that implication is correct. Now, as far as that particular biogas goes, it's ours. So we have a contract for it, for better and for worse. The City of Phoenix does not. So there was a little bit of controversy about that, and I would say it is the largest. There are others that can be developed in the region. They're smaller. They will make a smaller impact on smaller institutions. It's a good thing to do, but it won't be a panacea for a region. Often, when rights to these kinds of energy forms are secured, they're for 20 or 25 years. So potentially in 25 years, there will be a scrum for who gets the renewable energy credits for that fuel. Until then, that'll be issues.
Gotcha.
One more thing, sure. Something that we'll hear, if you know our president of our region, he'll often say that financial and legal engineering is harder than the mechanical engineering of these projects.
Well, that's leading right to what I was going to ask you. So banks, lenders, are they in tune with everything you guys want to do? How easy is it to get the money to do the things you're talking about?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'd say some are and some aren't. We do work with a lot of banks that are household names to everybody here. But again, we're changing the model. So here's another great example of LightWorks. LightWorks and Harvey Bryan lined us up with a company out of the Northwest that is trying to commercialize the megawatt through a PPA right now. One of the test projects we're looking to do at first of its kind is here at ASU. But that takes the banks and us and ASU and real estate, everybody to shift the model just a little bit. And so, yeah, I would say they are aware. Obviously, we need to be legal and keep in accordance with standard accounting practices, but we are pushing.
So,
go ahead.
by banking megawatts,
Sure.
I'll explain. Daniel means monetizing the value that derives from energy conservation efforts. And I do think that we are, ASU has some advantages, clearly. So we're a public institution, so we can float tax-free bonds. We have a number of advantages companies and corporations do not. So that's point one. The second one is that we are still, in relatively speaking, the early phase of this. We've done a quarter of the work, 3/4 is left to go. So the easy part has been accomplished or is underway. It'll be much more difficult later. So the things that we're doing now, if you have a 10-year horizon, they pencil out. Now, a company will demand a 3 or 4 year payback because they don't know if they'll get purchased or go away or get acquired or move or go to different facilities over the next 5 or 6 or 8 years because they don't know what the market will do. ASU is pretty confident we'll be here in the same business, in the same buildings, doing the same thing 10 years from now we are now. So if we're confident that the technology is durable to that length of term, then we have a luxury of purchasing a system that has a longer time window. So we have some advantages in that way.
Schools and hospitals and churches and places like that have that longer.
Would also have that advantage. That's
Yeah.
correct.
kids that are 10 years old are going to be participating in this when they come to ASU. How are you guys getting the message out to the students and to the faculty? And how can this crowd help you get the message out? And what is the message that you want out?
I'll start. I'm sure everybody has some insight on that. But one of the elements that we're pursuing is finding ways to leverage the excellent knowledge that's coming from ASU in, if you will, environmental psychology. We're working with some folks at ASU, for example, a recent graduate, Dr. Anna Berlin-Tamayo, to identify ways to develop behavioral modification programs. And I know it sounds like an evil plot, but ways to get people to do things that are better for the environment than not. That's the longer way to say it. And there is a science behind it. And ultimately, many of us in the industry over the past 30, 40 years have tried to do this on a number of occasions and had mixed results. And I think a lot of it's because we haven't tapped the right knowledge set. So we're coming up with ways to do that. And so there will be this marketing mix, this mix of messaging, how we target different audiences, what messages are developed, how they should be delivered to those audiences, with what repetition. Those are valid concepts and approaches that we will tap into. Another it includes K through 12 education, where ASU has one of the better developed K through 12 curriculum and education based upon some missed investments. And so we're evaluating, working together with the group within ASU that's doing this, and being able to leverage that and roll it out to 600 plus K through 12 school districts that we're engaged with, and try to keep it moving.
Nice. Dave, you want to add to that? Dave, what's your wish? Like, picture an ASU that's doing what you want it to do. Give us a vision.
Obviously, the vision is going to be the same as we've laid out. It's been laid out for us by President Crow, and that is climate neutrality on the building energy side by 2025. Now, we've heard from everybody up here the ways we're going to get there. So it's going to be difficult, and we don't have the answers how we get there, and that's why sessions like this will help to maybe generate some ideas from the audience or others how we're going to get there. But it has to be a joint effort. It has to be, everybody has to be engaged, and everybody has to participate. One of the things that, as part of our behavioral program, what we're looking at is, right now the university basically, for the most part, pays all of its energy bills centrally. So faculty, staff, students don't have any real knowledge of what their activities are costing in terms of energy consumption, energy costs. One of the things we're looking at is how do we gather enough information so that all of us have an idea of everything we do, what impact it's having on the university's energy bills. Potentially that could translate itself into maybe some lower tuition costs or incentives built into tuition. I mean, those are the kind of things that are going to be kicked around as this effort moves forward. But ultimately, the vision is that we have found a way to climate neutral by 2025, and so that probably means, because we're looking at some real opportunities right now, that probably means that we'll get our power from other source rather than the traditional utilities here, like the biogas, biomass. Those are real opportunities that we're looking at right now. We need to keep working and developing.
To your point of everyone becoming aware of their own energy use, we had a woman here, TJ DiCaprio from Microsoft, who instilled their internal carbon tax, basically. They call it the tax. So they're insisting every department head knows exactly what energy they're using, and incentivizing them, saying if you can lower your energy costs, you're not going to pay into this. You're not going to pay as big a tax. And there's a student, Nick Francis. Is he here? Well, he and I were talking, and he's thinking that would be a great thing for ASU, that very exact thing. And TJ would be happy to come down and teach us. Have you guys talked about that at all? Nick, why don't you jump?
We've talked about that very idea, and I think to do what's called distributed billing is a combination of a financial matter and a cultural matter. I dare say that at this moment, we'd have a little bit of a rebellion on our hands if we started charging department directors for utility bills. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
But we're already paying it anyway. It's just showing it up. It's not saying, hey, you guys now have to pay more. It's just, here's what you're paying right now.
That's correct. That's correct. So I think what it would amount to is you're now absolutely aware of the consequences of your action with respect to energy use.
Yeah.
So a middle step in between where we are now and doing that might be a program by which we would show what the liabilities are without actually doing billing. So we might have competitions, we might have public information, we might provide leadership with a knowledge base and understanding of why that's a pretty good idea. So I think it's something that if we phase into as a policy rather than dart into, it might work swimmingly.
Okay. Daniel, you were chomping at the bit, and then we're going to open up the questions from you all.
Sure, so kind of two things in that. We did sit on a couple sessions at what you did at Microsoft, and I think we're really excited about it. We're trying to figure out the best way to do it. But the other thing that kind of goes back to the question you asked before, Nick Francis was the first intern that we did for this program through Institute Ameresco. RMI just made their second intern selection. Ameresco, we have an internship posting right now. At ASU, we're looking to hire in the next couple of weeks.
Are you still taking applications?
Yes, till the 31st, we're taking applications.
Yes.
For an intern, is it a paid intern? Or
Yes, it's a paid internship.
And it's an undergrad or grad? Or?
It's undergrad or grad.
It's either one.
Hello? Okay.
So there's a plug. But the other thing is, I'm just going to be frank, we are, as Ameresco, a little new at trying to tap into all the way down to the student level on class projects and all those type of things. So, I mean, if you have ideas, if you have professors, if there are researchers, again, that you have ideas, please come and talk to us. We're not at all opposed to hearing those ideas.
Talk to you guys personally?
Certainly.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you want to throw out an email right now so people can write it down?
We've
Choose the cards.
Yeah, we've got a stack of cards.
They've got cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if it helps, the
Start with this.
solar email address, if you are interested in that, we will make sure, if it comes through as an email request, we will get it to the right folks.
So the brain trust is being requested to show up. So let's open it up to questions from you all.
I have one.
Yep.
Just to help Dr. Zero, Dr. Nick Brown. And I'm working for Chicago Port California Christmas, and Kevin is going to compliment the efforts of Kyrie Wastewater Treatment Plant. Dr. Emily Dow from Arizona State, with a bachelor's and a PhD in environmental engineering from Yale, says, like, I only say that, she's from Yale. And she says she also will be the only Yale graduate who grew through a trash can with Edison back there to pull out what looks to be almost an edible salad that we have to consume later on chickens, dogs, and cats into the compost pile in my backyard. She has 40 acres at Elliott and 202, or about 4 miles off that. We are going to, the next month or so, buy heavy machinery to begin commercial composting, utilizing an aerated static pile, which, oddly enough, will, in fact, reduce the emissions from an average compost pile by 80%. And what's going to happen if you don't turn it hourly, as Dr. Brown's taught me? If you're not really turning your compost every hour of the day, it's probably creating methane. That methane, when it gets in the atmosphere, as EPA goes bananas, will contribute to climate change. So, there in Peace Valley, it's happening. And looking to partner with everyone here to turn food waste into energy via methane. Methane that will only be 3 weeks old, not 3 million years old, and we don't have to frack anybody or anything for it. But I just want to invite that or mention that. And I'm so glad this is being videotaped because they're flying to California right now for a conference in Oakland.
The folks on video can't see you right now or hear you, so let me just. So basically, you're talking about food waste, turning it. You're basically composting it. Is there a program here? Is that part of the program? So you guys want to talk about it?
We currently divert about 40 tons per month of food scraps from 4 dining halls, that's Hacienda, Barrett, Palo Verde, and Manzanita, to a commercial composting operation in the south part of the county. That's pretty good. We'd like to do better. Food scraps to energy is a higher use than scraps to compost. We'd like to see landfill avoided in any case, in either case. We haven't yet, we'll be tackling the Memorial Union this spring. Haven't quite mastered or conquered it yet. We're conquering the Sun Devil Athletics events. So each of them has green bins and blue bins but no trash cans. So we kind of have a toehold on this. And the allusion to Kyrene was we're also looking into the Kyrene wastewater treatment plant to see if we can transform it from a facility that's currently mothballed into one that might be used as an anaerobic digester for organic materials.
A lot of potential. Next question, and we're streaming this live. They can't hear you, so if you can be short, I'll repeat it. We'll get it to the panel. Yes, sir.
I'm visiting here from visiting scientists in SOS and the University of Nebraska. I'm intrigued by what you've done here. It's come apparently from President down on down. Nebraska, the president has no interest I'm wondering, there's a number of faculty, including myself, quite a large number of us, very any suggestions for those of us from the university administration at higher level,
I'll repeat that. So the question was, a gentleman's a scientist, visiting scientist at SOS, School of Sustainability from University of Nebraska. And he's complimenting Dr. Crow for his leadership and wishing the president at his college was more into this, and wondering how do you change that? Mind melding?
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'd say the first thing is that most of our work to date has penciled out in a pretty conventional kind of way. Much of it has, at least. We've got some incentives from government for solarization that's kind of outside of that conventional form of penciling out. But much of it does. So, for example, as we look at the 91st Ave wastewater treatment plant biomethane, we're convinced that will be extremely competitive with brown gas over a 20-year contract period. So no one has a crystal ball. If we start off now at $6 an MMBTU, and we're buying it today for $4 or $4.25, then what do you think about what it would be if it were flat for 20 years? I dare say that we're going to look smart before that time period's over. But it is those kinds of things that don't automatically become excluded in a conventional way. And there are a number of projects and programs that we're undertaking that do pencil out. The energy savings performance contracts are an ideal example of that. Many of those, the ECMs, the energy conservation measures, have penciled out in 2, 3, or 4 years. And so these are things that you do in the name of efficiency, and they turn out to have a sustainability metric or benefit or luster to them.
So it's as much the words that are used as anything else. You want to save money, and you like waste. Those would be two questions I would ask the president. And, bring them down. Invite them down while you're here.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can make some time.
I would imagine President Crow would love to have a chat with us.
Yeah, we're booking Dr. Crow's time right now. Lots of that. Lots of free time.
Beyond that, I have one quote from Gandhi. Basically, he said, at first they'll ignore you, then they will laugh at you, then they will fight you, and then you will win.
Next question. Yes, sir.
Yes, that might be more for the Ameresco guys. In the lack of a national pricing regulation for a carbon tax of any kind, any national carbon pricing, I was curious what metric ton CO2 price you guys have come up with in order to calculate the cost, since the private sector is now doing some internal costs. I understand that ExxonMobil has its own internal costs now, so in that context, since there's all these competing prices, the White House also had a press release about various different costs that are proposed.
How they should calculate it within the EPA. Yeah. So basically, the question was, since there is no United States national price on carbon, yet there are some companies that have put it into their they're scenario planning, like Shell, like Exxon. And California's now got a mandatory market. What are you guys doing with that price on carbon? Are you setting up a baseline so that ASU can make money from that once those markets come in? Are you playing in California?
That's a great question. We do have a great presence in California right now. I'm going to say the short answer is if you go to our website and type in exchange point, X exchange point is one of the tools that we saw. That tool is specifically geared towards large industrial users because the carbon cap and trade in California is basically for large users right now. So that tool actually goes in and calculates what the carbon impact is, what the financial aspect is. But in terms of how it relates to ASU, it's actually Dr. Nick Brown, Betty Lombardo, Rob Bandley, several others, Joe Allen back there, who have come up with ASU's carbon baseline. Ameresco did not do that. And so, but the question, are we setting up ASU so that when if carbon taxes do come into Arizona, ASU will be in a good spot? Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And we do have a couple different metrics, and maybe not as much of an exact one, as much as we have a range of what it would be, what if then scenarios, what kind of financial position ASU would be in.
What kind of range are you playing with right now on the ton price?
Well, the California Air Resources Board does periodic auctions. They did 3 or 4 auctions in 2013. First couple of auctions went out at about $10 a ton. They sold every share that they had offered. The voluntary market out there is around $5 a ton. So Chevrolet has approached us saying they'll buy as much as we want to sell them in terms of our solar credits at $5 a ton. The idea being that maybe we could take that money, invest it, and say avoid even more emissions than we lost by selling them over a time period. That's kind of an intriguing possibility. And then, of course, the Northeast markets. There's a New England consortium, and the markets are pretty miserable there. It's about $3. And globally, carbon's taken about a 40% dive over the last 12 months. It's not a pretty sight, but you might think of it a little bit like you think of housing prices. They're probably at the bottom.
There's another element, too. I think notice that ASU actually sells the environmental benefits based upon the power purchase agreements. However, I don't think there are that many universities, Nick, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that Nick actually replaces the environmental credits here, the renewable energy credits, so it's a true accounting. And it's sort of an arbitrage. Sell it at its highest value and buy it at its lowest value. It's a brilliant approach to the economic model.
You guys are doing all this work right now without, like, you're making it work without a price on carbon, correct?
Yes.
And that's the deal. If this stuff works without that, then think of what it will do when there's a price on carbon.
I would add that in California, the RINs market, renewable identification numbers, is eligible for mobile fuels. So natural gas, which can be a fuel for vehicles, is eligible for that. And that can double the cost of gas in California. And put another way, the RINs may be worth as much as we're buying green gas for altogether currently in California, or more than.
I think the however is that you're actually implementing it here. I think Nick mentioned that for the biogas at wastewater treatment plant, 91st Avenue, Nick and Dave Brixen, Morgan Olson, Michael Crow, Dr. Crow, they made the decision to pursue that investment, not purely based upon the cost differential between brown gas and green gas, but they also included a VBAC, value beyond energy cost savings. They included the value of those environmental benefits, even though we don't have that market here currently.
Yeah. So let's do one last question, and go ahead, Sean.
So part of Michael Crow's many compelling visions is the ever-increasing access and enrollment for students. One of you mentioned his 100,000 student goal. So obviously carbon neutrality is an ongoing process and always needs redefining. And Aemeresco, you guys mentioned that you foresee a strategic partnership through this. However, what sort of self-management abilities and tools, I know campus metabolism was mentioned, but are you guys trying to build into this institution that can really manage itself and gain some success moving forward?
basically saying, Sean, is what's being instigated at ASU by these gentlemen in the programs they're starting that would actually just becoming part of the culture, part of the normal business, doing business for students who aren't even born yet and just down the road.
Absolutely.
I think they think you're going to do that.
I'm glad you got the internship.
Okay, just to touch on it real quickly, I'll give you an analogy and then I'll follow up. You take a sieve, we're busy plugging the holes in the sieve, and then we're coming along with some other policies based upon the old model and driving big holes into the sieve. Okay, what do I mean? Well, 25% of the buildings space on campus is research labs. They consume about 50% of the energy that's consumed by buildings on the campus. There are a number of 15-odd research buildings that will be built in the short term. We want to make sure that they're efficient. So you have some wonderful, dedicated folks within the Office of the University Architect and Capital Programs Management, Patty Olson, for example, Brian Kirkman, others, who have developed sustainable design guidelines. And these sustainable design guidelines need to be enforced and improved. It's easy to say that, but to actually come up with it and implement it is the challenge. So what we're going to need to do is develop buildings that are much more energy efficient, water efficient, that leverage daylighting much more, that have more measurement and verification equipment installed, that are commissioning, but potentially having ongoing commissioning of the buildings. So they will be built to own and operate as efficiently as possible. And so these are some of the elements that we're driving to and trying to find ways to implement those changes.
Let me just add that the culture is changing here at ASU. In particular, employee evaluations. All employees their performance is reviewed on an annual basis. I'm pretty sure in most departments, those performance appraisals have been changed or revised to include some sort of evaluation on how that employee is contributing to the university's sustainability goals. So it's got a lot of work to do, but the culture is changing, and I think you're just going to be seeing more and more of that.
For the part of the evaluation that's saying judging someone or grading someone's sustainability achievements, what department sees that? Does it go to your department or?
Okay, so I'll answer that because I'm facilities development. I represent facilities development management. We're a department of around 500 staff members. Each one of our staff members are evaluated with that criteria. Facilities, and you've heard, I mean, everything that's changing has changed or is changing in facilities development management. One of the things that I preach in our organizations is we need to walk the talk. We need to be the leaders. If we want to expect others to follow, we need to lead those efforts. And so I think we were probably one of the first large units that implemented the performance appraisal changes.
So it sounds like things have started, and it sounds like they're very, very, very open to everyone's ideas. That's why you're here.
And there are a couple of other things that we've really hardwired into the future. One of those is housing. So we currently have 12,000 beds on the Tempe campus. We want 15,000. That's directly related to our commuting emissions. So the more people live here, the less our emissions are, period. The same goes for the area around us in Tempe. A tower is going to be built over on Rio Salado near the lake. That's not walking distance, but it's not driving distance either. It's biking distance. So that's strategic. That's a good thing. Only 32.9% of all students drove one to a car to our campuses last year. And that's phenomenal. If you think about the size of our campus and as spread out as the valley is, so only a third of us are driving to campus one to a car. So that means that our incentives are working for transportation. That's not an accident. That's hardwired in, and that's what we intend to continue doing and to reinforce. Secondly, our zero waste program intends to have only recyclable and compostable bins everywhere. So you go to a Sun Devil Athletics event, there really aren't any trash cans until you go to the exit. If you exit, we'll give you a break. No telling what you've got by then. But basically, it's status quo. So this is not a special event. This is not a green game. This is what we do. It's what we do all the time. Every Sun Devil game is going to be a green gain. So we don't even call them green gains anymore. So these are hardwired in, and these are examples of what we do at ASU. And as time goes on, and you see us roll out other elements in zero waste, you're going to see the same thing in your kitchenettes. You're going to see them at your large events on campus. You'll see them at the food courts as well as at the dining halls. And so all of these things are just going to become the way we do business, period.
I'm going to let Nick have the last word on the mics, but everyone come up and talk to these gentlemen because they're here and they want to integrate with you. They want your ideas. And so thank you so much for coming today. Thanks for LightWorks for hosting. And to be continued, right? All right, thank you.